Welcome and thanks for joining us to this session that I'm going to cover from, the title is From Aura to LWC, and we're going to see some similarity and differences between the Aura development and the Lightning Web Component and how we can leverage on the skills that we have already on the Aura framework, how we can transfer them to Lightning components. So first of all, a bit about me. I am Vincenzo Denti, Enzo for friends who knows me. I work as a senior Salesforce engineer at Sky Betting and Gaming. In Sky, we have two teams that look after our Salesforce instance. We use Salesforce as a community to give to our customer the first touch point and as well as source of information about safe gambling, for example, or how to use our services. And as well, we use Service Cloud to help our agents to trace all the contacts with our customers. I am a Salesforce certified. I hold in total 12 certification, spreading between admin, platform developer, architect, and integration designer. Those are, as you can see here, are my contacts. So if you would like to drop me feedback on this session, or if you would like to suggest a topic for a next meeting, or even if, like Ashwin did, step up and get on stage to present yourself, get in touch, and we're gonna arrange something for you. So let's get started. So this material is taken in good part from the Lightning Web Components for Aura Developer Trailhead modules. I like particularly this module because it helped me in a day-by-day in a working task that I had to technically migrate some Lightning Web Component Aura. Oh my God, I'm gonna start with that. Aura components to Lightning Web Components, and it guided me to spot those differences, similarities that it helped me in that task. So the first question, of course, that probably someone asks to itself is, why another framework? I already learned Aura, why now I have to learn another one? So Salesforce released the Lightning Web Component for three main reasons. For a matter of adopting new standards, to increase performances, and to have better transferable skills. What do we mean by that? So the Lightning Web Component are based on new JavaScript standards, development standards that were released around in 2015. Those standards introduce new concepts like module, constant, and classes. Before that, the panorama of the JavaScript was a collection, the ecosystem was a collection of several frameworks, one different one of each other, and that in some cases the framework itself became almost another language, another programming language. So the first the first drive was to adapt to the ES6 custom elements of Shadow DOM to leverage on this new technology. Going on the performance side, the new standards are embedded and directly executed by the browser. So that means that your Lightning Web Component will be incredibly fast to execute it, instead of like in the past, that your JavaScript code have to be processed by an abstraction layer of JavaScript that sits in the middle. Finally, there is the transferability of the skills. Because the Lightning Web Components are based on standard JavaScript standards, a developer that never have saw Lightning Web component but have worked on those JavaScript standards can easily pick up that, and as well vice versa. We, as a Salesforce developer, we can put our hands on other JavaScript frameworks. So in this session, I'm going to present a few slides where, as I said, with some similarities or differences between the Aura and the LWC. On the left-hand side, I will put some code snippet from the Aura, and on the other side, the equivalent for the Lightning Web component. And we're going to see together we're going to see together the differences. So, of course, the first things that the first difference that we can notice when we open the two components are the markup. The Lightning Web component is based on having, oops, I shouldn't click, on an Aura component tag. Instead, the Lightning Web component is based on the standard HTML template. Also, the attributes in Aura, we have to declare in the component, and then we can access them with the notation of the curly bracket and the exclamation mark. What I'm doing. With the Lightning Web component, instead, the parameters are defined as a properties in the JavaScript file, and then can be accessed directly in the component just with the curly bracket and no exclamation mark that actually will give an error. As you can see already how those two components that are similar in a bit, they are how the Lightning Web component, the notation is way neater and cleaner. Continuing on the differences, another fact that I appreciated is the conditionals. In the Aura, we have the construct Aura if, and then in the is true, we can specify the condition. In the Lightning Web component, instead, the construct use the standard if attribute of the template tag. And not only the condition, it must be defined in the JavaScript file. And that it's something that I liked quite a lot, because in my experience, I saw this condition grow and grow and grow. It became even more less maintainable during time, where instead, in this way, we are kind of forced to put the condition in the JavaScript file. And so we have all the condition nicely packed in one single place to be better maintained. Another aspect that differentiates the two frameworks are how we run some code when the component is loaded. In the Aura, we have to define a handler with a specific name and then define the JavaScript function for that. That most of the time the name is on init, but this is not a must. Instead, in the Lightning Web component, there is nothing to add in the component, but just we have to define a function with this name, connected callback, and this automatically will be executed when the component is added to the DOM. So again, the notation is neater, clear, and you already know what to look to find the initialization of that component. A very nice thing that the Aura framework provided to us was a good library of base components. With this base component, we could build our components adapt to our information. Now, the Lightning Web component because it's a new framework, they cannot contain the old framework. So a Lightning Web component cannot contain an Aura component. However, an Aura component instead can contain a web component. So in this case, then the question that maybe pop in our mind is, but then what about the base components? Well, they are still available, but they need to be called in a slightly different way. As you notice here, there is after the word Lightning, there is a colon. Instead, it's replaced here by a dash. And then the name of the component, that in this case is camel case, instead it became all lowercase, and the words are separated by a dash. Similar thing for the attribute of the component, that here became currency dash code. Finally, another difference is that the Lightning Web component don't allow the self-closing tag. So as you can see, like here, I had to create a Lightning formatted number closing tag, even so this doesn't have actually anything in between the opening tag and the closing tag. On the same level, on the same, all the components, the base component to work with the records, so to build forms, to edit, view, read only, to read, they're still available. We have just to change slightly the syntax. Again, the semicolon became a dash, and all camel case words became lowercase, the dash separated word. And again, this is valid for the component name and as well the attributes of those components. What I think that have in common, of course, the Lightning Web component and the Aura component, they both have the CSS. So the file where we can define the style of our components. And at first look, this looks for probably the easiest way to migrate them, because Lightning Web component uses the standard CSS. Instead, Aura use a proprietary CSS. So as you notice, those are practically almost identical, except for this word. So it looks quite a very easy transition. However, there is a little difference, that the Aura component, the CSS is cascaded from the parent component to the child. This doesn't happen with Lightning Web component. So if you have then, if you're restructuring your code and you have that the component, the child component is relying on some style that is in the parent, you have to have a little look at that. Eventually, we can get to the core of our component, the JavaScript. Without JavaScript, our component will be just static HTML that it might be pretty, but not very useful. Again, the Aura component came before this standardization, before concepts like classes or modules were available. And the Aura component where we had three files: the controller, the helper, and the render. In the Lightning Web component, instead, there is just one JavaScript file. In Aura, the JavaScript file was an object in object literal notation with pair of name value. So the function acts as a value. The Lightning Web component, it leverages of this new standard, so we can create classes like in other programming languages. We can import modules like here, and at the end, we can export of this module what we think that is useful to be used from other or accessible from other components. Another difference or need that we can address with the JavaScript is to get some data. To get some data, in the Aura component, we use the Apex method that are labeled as Aura-enabled methods. And those methods have to be in a controller class. This controller class have to be referenced in the component. And then in the JavaScript, we have to retrieve that method, assign parameter, then handle the callback for the success or the eventual error. And then finally, we can, if this plays, we can fire the, we can execute the actual method. With the Lightning Web component, we still need that the Apex method is Aura enabled, but we are not any more tied to only one class. And we can just import whatever method we need, and importing this method, it will be imported as a JavaScript method, and this method, it will be return a promise that will resolve in with the results of the method, or will reject with an error that, of course, we need still to handle. How can we make talk components if we not use the events? Again, here other differences, again, based on the fact that the Aura framework use a proprietary event construct. Instead, the Lightning Web component uses the custom event. On the Aura, what we have to do, as we probably know, is creating a new component, referencing in the in the component itself, and then retrieve the event, assign eventual parameters, and finally fire the event. In the Lightning Web component, as you can see, the whole thing's way more shorter and neater, because we need just to create an instance of this class of the custom component, custom event with a name, and in case assign some properties, and then dispatch that event. So again, the syntax is a bit simple, clear, neater. Of course, after you dispatch or fire an event, there is the way to handle. Here is pretty similar in the two framework. The only difference, as you can see, is again the colon that become a dash, and then the event that in this case is notification. It gains automatically in Lightning Web component is on automatically. In both cases, we have to define anyway the JavaScript method that will handle the notification. So, concluding, this is a good moment, a good opportunity to rework some old components and give a new life, new technology, new standard, new performances. What Salesforce suggests is that anyway, this is a process that will be taken step by step. So if you're creating something new, yes, why not start straight away from Lightning Web component. Here in the middle, think about if it's a good case to get on the new components or go on the known way of the Aura. But because in general, those are two different technologies, even some parts similar, but they can guide you to new structures, new outcomes in your in your development. And with that, I'm finished. Again, those are my contacts. Again, if you want to hear something, some topic that you're interested about, let me know. I will find out information or someone that knows better than me to bring here to talk. Or if you want to offer yourself to come here and talk, have a talk, more than free to let you take the stage. So again, thanks again to everyone to join us. And I don't know if there is any question.
Yep, we've got one from Bash, which says, even today, in what situations would you use an Aura component with or without LWC embedded, because LWC is unable to deliver your requirements?
Tough question. I would probably, yeah, you know, if I want to do something and the current technology cannot do it, of course, you have to stick a bit on the old tools. Even so, I think that they are delivering constantly on new features on the Lightning Web Component. But I think the idea is to migrate as fast as possible to this new technology. So hopefully that is a very small transition time, or a job that it will occur not often. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little reason now to use Aura over LWC. At the start, there was a bit of disparity still. The big one I would mention is if you've got sibling components that need to communicate. In Aura, they can do that via Aura events, whereas in Lightning Web Components, you have to use a pub sub model. So it does work, it's just a bit of a workaround. So if you have two child components that need to chat to each other, Aura might be a better option. Any more questions? So they're asked, is there a deprecation plan, and if Aura is planned to be deprecated?
Not that I'm aware of it. Not that I'm aware of it at the moment.
Yeah, there is none at the moment in the official documentation that I have read or heard of. So no, I think it'll be around for a while. It was we had a developer group a few years back. A talk from Skip Sauls and Doug Chasman, who were the guys who developed Aura, and in chatting to them, they were saying that they'd love to be able to use more standard technology, but there wasn't the technology available. But if you chat to them both now about LWC, they're really big fans of LWC because the technology has moved on, so there's no need for them to maintain and develop a custom framework. So I don't think it will be deprecated for a while, but there's a lot of use of it still.
It still, I think, depends as well from the customer base, because, for example, there is a lot of people still on Visualforce, and they're pushing to go to Lightning, but some customers are struggling, so they cannot just cut the Visualforce down, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it took them. I've worked in orgs in the past 5 years and still have S controls. So, yeah, it'll be around for a while, I'm sure. Anyone else old enough in the tooth to remember S controls?
No.
Will Lightning messaging channel replace using pub sub? Saw that is in beta and have not looked into it. I think it's meant to, but you're right, Ashwin, it is still just in beta. Peter Chittum was doing a lot of stuff around that, so I might reach out to him, see if he can come and do a talk for us on it. So have you played with that, Enzo?
I think it is. Yeah, I mean, I didn't do personally, but in the team, I know that we just delivered a new functionality totally done in Lightning Web Component, except a little bit, and it was just you don't notice the difference between the old Lightning and the new Lightning Web Component. So I think yes.
Okay. We've got another question here, which is Lightning Design System also available in LWC? Or was that, sorry, was that the one you were just answering?
Yeah, that's the one that I just answered.
Okay,
I
cool.
think that maybe the Lightning message channel, that is the one that you answered.
Yes, no, cool. Just making sure for the recording. Anyone else got any other questions? Okay, I think we are good then if there are no more questions. So if anyone would like to talk at a future event, as Enzo mentioned, you can reach out to Enzo or myself directly, or through the Trailblazer community group, or if we jump onto the next slide, it should have magically appeared.
No, he's not here.
Oh, the cloud doesn't work. Maybe if you quit, maybe if you stop presenting and it might show up. Maybe it's there in the background but not available. Yeah, it's the one below. As some of you have seen already in the chat, we have a YouTube channel now. There is one video up there, which was Ashwin's talk a couple of weeks ago. And we will be posting Enzo's talk from today up there as well. So head over to that and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can get copies of all of these videos and watch them back. And you can also follow us on Twitter at NESFDG. And we post up there, we'll post links to recordings and of course any future meetings. And again, if you'd like to talk, then feel free to tweet or DM NESFDG or either myself or Enzo. Cool. Anything else to add, Enzo?
No, thanks again to everyone that attended, and hopefully see you to the next session.
Super, yeah, thank you very much for that talk, Enzo. It was really, really useful.
Thank you.